All right. So as we speak now, the Monetary Policy Committee is meeting. Meeting starts today. Announcement of decision is tomorrow. And right here at Channels Television, we will turn this studio into an MPC studio from 1 p.m. tomorrow. And we'll have a broad conversation on expectations and then take a quick look at some of the issues are considered by the meeting. So let's start from today and lay out some of those considerations. And we're going to do that with the Chief Executive Officer of Imperium Capital Partners, Mr. Segun Akanji. Joins us in the studio. Mr. Akanji, good afternoon, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Yeah, so the meeting is on. Perhaps let's have our own MPC meeting
I tell you.
right here in the studio. So we do know, obviously, inflation is a major one. This administration of the Central Bank of Nigeria has adopted inflation targeting, even though I don't know if they can hit that target that is set for this year. But I think one good thing is that we're seeing inflation pressure beginning to reduce for a second month on month. And this obviously will be a major consideration for the meeting, even as we speak. What do you hear them saying, assuming you're a fly on the wall in the meeting?
All right, thank you very much. I think the focus this time, first is to hold down on what would they be doing concerning interest rates. And I think everyone is trying to open their ears to hear that in terms of what direction that will trend. I guess we'll discuss that. But I think it's a combination of events that would help to ramp up capacity to strengthen the fiscal side of the economy. Because if you consistently continue to push up rates, then it gets to a point that it becomes dysfunctional. And when it becomes dysfunctional, you begin to see the reverse of what you intended. So it is how you are able to combine the capacity of the monetary policy, which you drive largely with the tool of interest rates, with the discipline and the body language that the executive demonstrates in the management of its physical side to give the balance that the currency is struggling to have. And so once they are able to attune their minds to that, we are probably going to see a bit of trend up, not exorbitant, in the interest rate side.
What's trend up, not exorbitant? What number?
Well, so I would probably be thinking that because anything beyond this point, we are heading towards a crisis. So I would be expecting nothing more than, at the max, a 2%. But personally, I don't think they should go beyond maximum of 1% at this time. That puts us about 25.75. It's already a tight pressure, but I believe because of the race that inflation is still on at about 33 plus, you want to be able to at least make the instruments that government will be issuing a bit more attractive in case that can help to drive additional inflow.
You don't see a hold, you don't see the possibility of a hold. Perhaps since we are beginning to see some fruits, maybe just hold and let's see if we can get more fruit before we move again.
All right, so you see, when you are trying to find a balance in an economy, the currency is trying to find a point of stability, and we are beginning to see that around the 1,000, 1,500, 1,400, 500.
It's been 1,500.
Yes. So exactly. So it's like you are finding the currency trying to say, this is my point of price discovery. Except we do something major in terms of policy that will drive prosperity and production. Then we start to see that recede a bit more. Of course, dealing with other exogenous issues that are out of the ambit of regulation. Once we are able to silence that using the instrumentality of law, then in terms of the economics of managing currency and being able to attract supply, because our challenge largely is supply. So the reserve today cannot, that war chest is not there to defend the currency. So it is how do we widen the base of supply so that once there is supply and people are sure that every time they approach the market, they are able to meet the needs for legitimate use. And once that confidence is there, it becomes
the speculation
easy.
Will reduce.
Very much.
Well, the NNPC boss over the weekend did say that our crude production is approaching 1.7. I guess if we see that, because that's our major stay when you talk about supply
Correct.
into the country, I guess if we see that, that could also help. And I would also like for you to comment, do you think that this price recovery level for currency at about 1.5, are we stabilizing there?
All right. You see, economy is a moving number. So we are seeing stability around that area. But of course, to be able to have foundation for that stability to rest on, you have to do certain things right. One of that is, first is to increase, like I said before, the various avenues for inflows, supply. And one of that, like you mentioned, is the sale of crude. But we need to go beyond that, because the world is watching. Investors are watching. They are watching our body language in terms of how our policies help to stabilize the entire economy. So we cannot, for example, be punishing certain appropriately set up companies on one side, maybe call them whatever name you call them, whether they are P2Ps and all of that, because we didn't regulate them at the time of entry. And if we are going to catch up with regulation, we need to do that right. We cannot create fears for investors to come in.
You seem to be referring to the crypto space. And you think that is affecting investor sentiment at this time?
So investors take decisions on many things when they are trying to come into your country. Whichever way you impact on how people run business in a way that they cannot demonstrate clear line of sight on how you are regulating or acting on them, it makes people to sit back and watch. Because, for example, if somebody is going to put money to buy a license for any business in Nigeria, especially foreign people that are coming, or they want to set up asset management businesses or even banking, or even we are going to the era of recapitalization. They have to bring in money, and then they are not sure how that will pan out. Then we create a challenge for ourselves. And that's where we need to be upfront on how we want to regulate, whether in terms of the legal structure itself or the regulation institutions that would be responsible for that regulation. How we do so, it must be clear, and people should know what they will meet at the end of the bridge.
Do you think we're at least on the path of being clear? The Tinubu-led administration has been receiving a lot of applause from IMF and World Bank and all those international institutions. So do you think perhaps, even if we're not there yet, are we on the path of giving certainty to investors?
All right, thank you very much. For me, I think the government is on the right track. However, there are certain things we're doing wrong still. So we have the document. We can be applauded by all the institutions. Applause is not going to put food on the table of the masses. So our policies seem to be shrinking the middle class. And once the middle class gets shrunk, what you find is crisis of legitimacy, because the middle class for Nigeria is our safety net for reaching out to the base. So the government, in terms of policy written down, seem to be acting right, but the implementation seems to be a bit unstable. For example, I mean, I won't spend 90 billion on pilgrimage, whether it's whichever way. I won't spend that. Now, I'm not against government supporting them, but this is not the time to support anyone with that. Infrastructure development. There are various sophistication and solutions that can bring infrastructure to bear without extending the resources that is not there at this time. So our concentration is, how do we lift the mass of the people out of poverty into a point where there is stability and people can fend for themselves, and we can deal with issues of security, so that those policies that will sponsor prosperity are adequately focused on and resources directed to them. How about, for example, we look at our agriculture? So we take, Nigeria is blessed. We are a resource-blessed country. We look at the different regions. What are the competitive advantages in this region? Why don't we engage the private sector to invest, for example, in regions where they are sourcing their resources for beneficiation? For example, if you dry some of these agricultural produce, you add value to them when they are exported. We get raw agricultural produce from here and they go out of the country without any form of beneficiation. That alone makes us to lose a lot of money. But if we have center of excellence for processing of different agricultural produce from, or even our solid mineral as well, I mean, why don't we have refineries in those areas? I mean, the world thrives on gold and diamond. We have everything. So we need to start to think of how do we centralize this in a form that the private sector is championing it to set up regional structures for this advancement.
All right, Mr. Akonji, a whole lot of conversations going on there. Mr. Segun Akonji, Chief Executive Officer of Imperium Capital Partners. Thank you so much for sharing your views with us. Tomorrow is decision day. The studio will be open, and I'm sure you'll watch to see some of our conversations. But thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much.